The most disgusting moment of my life just occurred 30 minutes ago. What is the most spew-worthy moment of your life so far? When I was a little kid, I had a small jar in my room. One day, for no reason, I brought it outside with me and set it down on my lawn. Open. I come back 5 minutes later to find a gigantic wasp sitting right in the middle of it. With my quick thinking, I threw a lid on there. Now, at the time I was into science, so I'm thinking, this is a perfect opportunity. I shake the jar up until the wasp is barely moving, and then pour into that jar every possible thing I could get my hands on. Vinegar, salt, cleaning products, the whole 9 yards. I then sealed up this container and put it in the back of my shelf, never to be thought of again. Fast forward 10 motherfucking years, I'm moving out of my house. As I'm cleaning out the shelf, I find Mr. Wasp. His body is almost perfectly preserved, and all of the liquid that had been in there was now just a sticky mess. And I freaking opened it. I'd rather be taped to a chair and watch goats for the rest of my life than to smell that smell ever again. It hit my nose like Chris Brown with Rihanna. I insta-vomited so bad that I ruined all of my shirts, most of my pants plus underwear, and my couch which I had in my room. All of my clothes were laid out to be packed, since I was moving. And, the best part is, I passed out. That's right. My parents entered the room 5 minutes later because they smelled something terrible from downstairs. I will never forget that. TLDR. Mummified a wasp in a jar, opened it up a long time later and destroyed my room and a piece of my soul. My ex-wife used to have a dog that would eat its own crap, fresh and hot, right out of the oven. It was a large dog, too, which meant a large quantity of crap. That by itself would be bad enough, but that was only the beginning. Eating crap apparently gave the dog indigestion. Who could imagine? And the result was that he would occasionally burp ghastly turd-scented burps that could easily clear a room full of sanitation workers and forensic pathologists. Even this was not enough. After a big wad of dog crap had festered in the heck cauldron of his stomach for a few hours, he would barf. You know how most dogs give you at least a couple seconds warning when they are about to spew? Maybe they start making hic moomp gark noises, or walk around looking uncomfortable or something. Not this dog. He would just suddenly, with no warning at all, projectile vomit an amazing quantity of liquefied feces mixed with stomach acid. Human language does not have the capacity to adequately describe the smell. Well, one morning, this dog jumped up on the bed to greet my wife and immediately drenched her chest, neck, and face with hot and sour liquid that had been fermenting since the night before. Understandably, she also immediately barfed all over the blankets, sheets, and pillows. Luckily, this happened after we were separated and I was no longer living with her, so I mainly have happy, lulzy memories of the event as she described them to me. If it had happened to me, I would have immediately run out into traffic and tried desperately to be hit by a speeding truck. There are some things you never get over, and I bet that's one of them. I have never laughed so much at a post before. Ghastly turd-scented burps that could easily clear a room full of sanitation workers and forensic pathologists is beautifully descriptive, in a horrible way, while hot and sour liquid sounds like a dish from the Chinese buffet in heck. After high school I was working in the warehouse basement of a store in NYC. One day a huge storm caused the sewer outside to back up into my office. There was about 4 inches of water and every bit of nastiness from the street outside on the floor that the other warehouse guy and I were given the task of cleaning up. Our manager rented a sump pump and after I had set it up I turned it on while leaning over the top of it. Having never used one before I had neglected to secure the output hose to the top which then broke loose sending a high pressure geese of crap straight into my open mouth, eyes and nose. As I spun away from it choking and gagging I must have kicked the pump unplugging it from the wall. My friend could barely contain himself, he was laughing so hard but calm as a bee. When he finally pulled himself together he grabbed the plug for the pump and while standing in 4 inches of sludge plugged it back in, nearly electrocuting himself. Watching him writhe violently for those few seconds before the circuit breaker trip took my mind off the evil taste in my mouth. My son had a bite on the underside of his forearm when he was around 7. It swelled up pretty bad so we took him to the doctor who told us it was MRSA. I'm a freaking germaphobe so I freaked and constantly wiped down everything in the house with bleach as was instructed by the doc. We also had to constantly drain the bite each day, basically popping the large zit-like thing growing on my son's arm. My son is a pretty tough kid. However, the thing was extremely painful to him when I tried to drain it. I had to squeeze the crap out of it while he whined in pain. Understandably so. His mother, my girlfriend, left this job to me since it hurt him so much. I had the sterile gloves on one evening and we went to work. Every day prior when I would squeeze it, a little bit of pus and clear liquid out. He'd scream and cry and we would stop. This day a lot of crap started to come out. I told him we were gonna squeeze just a little more and all of a sudden his arm exploded. This gross nasty brown crap literally sprayed our entire bathroom and my entire face. I had freaking MRSA covering my face. I freaked. My reaction was so out of character my son ended up laughing at me while I scrubbed the entire bathroom and my body for the next hour. His arm got better in a couple of days. I googled MRSA. Nope. I used to work in an infant room of a daycare. One day I go into the nap room to get one of the kids up from their crib. I put my arm around her back and pick her up when the worst smell ever hits me. I start my sentence. Hey guys, do you smell? But, wait, no, it couldn't be. Yes, this girl has crap all the way up to her neck. It leaked through her diaper because her parents didn't want to move her up a size until they used all the millions of diapers they bought in a smaller size. It was freaking everywhere, over her crib. It dripped on the floor as I carried her across the room. People down the hall in the other classrooms were complaining about the smell, and I was there, changing this crying 1-year-old and trying to shower her off in the sink while I'm trying to clean myself up. When I think about wanting kids, I think of that moment and decide no, not yet. The most epic infant poop I ever had to clean was pooped by my oldest daughter. She had poop all the way up into her hair and down into her socks, soaking them. She's 25 now, and I remind her about it every chance I get. I work at a medical facility that performs abortions. This past Saturday a patient had come in to prep for an abortion and have her laminarius put in, little sticks to dilate the cervix. Everything went fine and she went home. Later that evening, we received a call about 11 PM or so saying the patient had begun to miscarriage. Turns out the husband was an abusive drunk and had gone straight to the hospital. We opened today specifically to see this patient. The couple arrives and the husband hands me a school bag and says, "Here, take this." I don't know what to do with it. Like an idiot, I open the school bag. Inside is a 22-week fetus that had been rotting and decomposing in blood and tissue and nastiness. For the first time in this field, I was seconds away from uncontrollably vomiting everywhere. The smell, I can't even begin to explain what it was like. Suffice to say that right now, just thinking about it makes me want to vomit. Anyway, I hand it over to the doctor and he gagged real hard and then, you guessed it, vomited all over the floor. He said he never smelled anything so horrendous in his life. He cleaned it up and took some samples for pathology and then we had some lunch. The end. And then we had some lunch. You, sir, have a stomach of steel. This didn't happen to me, but I witnessed it firsthand, and I puked just from watching. Over the summer, I had a few friends over. We were drinking, watching some crap on TV, and just having fun. Eventually, one of our friends passed out face up on the pool table. My friend, I'll call him Bob, decided we should mess with him. We didn't want to do anything lame, so Bob thought someone should fart on his nose and see if he'd wake up. The only one who could fart on demand is Bob, so he had the honors. He climbed on the pool table, pulled his pants down, and crouched over my friend's face. At the same time, his balls were literally touching my friend's lips, which was hysterical to say the least. Bob started grunting as he tried to push out this fart, and then it happened. He crap on his face. Immediately, my friend woke up, scared out of his mind. There was a slimy, half-liquid crap all over his face. Testicles were on his mouth, and he was already about to vomit. He turned to the side, while shoving Bob, and his crap covered butt onto the floor, and puked all over him. Bob puked. We all puked, while laughing hysterically, besides the one who got crap on. The house smelled for a week. It took forever to clean up the floor, and the stench. I used to live just outside of Palm Springs in the California desert. One Friday night after an evening of hard drinking, I got home and decided that I needed some food in me to help soak up the booze. I grabbed a box of Triscuits, whole wheat wafer crackers for those who don't know, lay down on the couch with the lights out and TV on, and started munching. After about 5 minutes I felt a little tickle on my chest, scratched it and thought nothing of it. A minute later, same sensation, this time on my neck. As I scratch it, I can feel something under my fingers. I sit up, flipped on the light and can see about a half dozen ants crawling across my chest. If you have ever lived in California, you know ants are a big problem, so I wasn't freaked out until it struck me where the ants were coming from. I looked in box of Triscuits and it was a swarming mess. This realization comes after 5 minutes of eating. I ran to the sink and spit out the mouthful of food I had. It was a mix of chewed cracker and ant parts. Ants are a good source of protein. Lived at a rooming house. The owner was a woman in her 80s and some weird guy was made to leave, so she asked me and this male nurse to clean up the room for her and she let us out of $20 rent each. No big deal, I thought. First we found a bunch of notebooks with some fricked up death drawing in them, and I mean really screwy, but that was nothing. When we looked under the bed and in the closet for the smell that was so bad, we found, wait for it, we found about 42-liter soda bottles filled with pee. Yes, I said pee, and he had bad aim since some had it on the outside. I thought it was disgusting, and to top it off it was like 90 degrees, so you got the full effect since it felt warm like he'd just filled them. I've done some nasty jobs in my life, but what really convinced me it was bad was when I saw the male nurse that was doing this with me vomiting outside. Now when someone who wipes crap off of people's asses daily is grossed out to the point of puking, I know I have hit a new level of nasty. My friends and I took his rowboat out on the canal behind his house. We were very drunk. Even his neighbors sat next door in their garden laughed at us, claiming we were going to fall in. We kept on going. Around 20 foot down the canal, we started tipping. One of my friends is very tall, so he didn't get submerged. I on the other hand went in head first, laughing my head off. I took a massive stomachful of the most vile, disgusting crap pea water I have ever tasted. Canal boats offload their sewage into there. There are dead rats pee and crap, and all sorts of other horrible things lurking in there. I stood chin deep in water in shock. My friend was more angry that his spliff was now soaked in this crap and his lighter wasn't working. I pulled myself onto the side path and chunned it for about 10 minutes, then dry chunned it for another 5. I feel sick just thinking about it. We had to shamefully row back past his neighbors all soaking wet. I think it made their evening. Till Chunda. I worked as a supervisor for security at a hospital, and part of our job was to assist the funeral homes with the removal of the dead bodies from the morgue so they didn't take the wrong one. One day I got a call from another security guard for assistance. I get there and they were attempting to roll out a 550 pounds man on a cart made to haul people no heavier than 300 pounds. The wheels broke and this massive corpse rolls under the main trash bin for the hospital near the vehicle they were attempting to load the body into. I call 5 other hospital employees to assist with pulling this body out from under the bin and lift him into the van. Now this is where it gets a little gross. I was the main person supporting this body as we rolled him into the van because I was fairly used to dead bodies and this one was in a body bag, so it wasn't that bad. We just started to get him into the van and everybody backs away thinking we have him all the way into the vehicle. I know we don't because the body started to roll back out. I gripped what I thought was the bag but ended up grabbing skin and torn it away from the body as the body began to roll out on top of me. For those of you that don't know, body bags are not air fluid tight. At this point all the fluids leaking from his body where I tore him open and the fluid that came out from him falling off the cart, pee crap, were now leaking down my neck and into my shirt. That's enough internet for today. My best friend and I pick up a couple vids to watch at his parents while he's back on break. We stop at a grocery store to get some snacks. He's intrigued by a succulent looking Swiss choco bar, imported from Switzerland, and I get Twizzlers or some crap. On the way back he breaks open his candy bar and eats a few squares. Pretty good, he says. I a little dry. We get back to the house, set up in the kitchen for more snacks, and that's when he sees it. The Swiss chocolate bar is like 4 years out of date. He opens up the packaging and the entire bar is riddled with holes from something burrowing through it. It looks like a termite's nest. For Chris's sake, He breaks it apart and finds scores of small beetles, about an 1/8 of an inch, long dead, some poking out of the bar at the break as if mummified there. He had eaten maybe a quarter of the bar. TLDR. My friend bought a candy bar full of bugs and ate some. Most disgusting moment of my life. As a kid, I relished the last day of school. I ran home as fast as I could and threw my backpack and lunchbox and all my school supplies in my backyard shed and never looked at them again. I had a dizzying summer full of sugar, summer camp, and video games. Then came fall. Then came time to dig that lunchbox out of my shed. The lunchbox that I had forgotten to empty. The one that had been baking in the summer heat for 3 months. The one that had milk, an apple, and some sort of sandwich in it. I knew something was wrong before I even started opening it. It just didn't look right. The smell was already detectable as I entered the shed. I reached for the zipper and tugged it open in one quick movement. The smell was so overpowering it was like a cartoon cloud of acid puffing up out of the box. I started gagging almost instantly. Everything was covered in mold, and there was something, maggots, some bugs, writhing around inside. The contents were no longer recognizable. Only the cardboard milk carton had not decayed to the point of being a heap of sludge. I only had one option. Bury it. Bury it forever. I went and got a shovel and made a 2-foot deep hole in my backyard. Then I wrapped a t-shirt over my mouth and put on my ski goggles. Then I found some thick gardening gloves. I carried it like a live bomb and dropped it in the hole and covered it as fast as I could. Somewhere in my old backyard, there's a stink bomb of epic proportions waiting for someone to uncover. Ahahaha. I have done this except instead of burying it I opened it with 2 sticks in the backyard. Then covered the brown slimy substance with a bag and waiting until nightfall took the dog out for a walk and then dropped the evidence in a rubbish bin in another neighborhood. My mum asked me where my lunchbox from last year was and I looked her in the eyes and said I don't know. I was traveling from PA to Upper NY. It was a pretty rough trip. Lots of turbulence and traffic. Hard to really see much. I don't know. It must have been something I ate earlier but my bowels were on fire. I just couldn't hold it. It was awful. Luckily for me, I was right in NYC, the poop city. I landed right on a telephone line and prepared my rectum for the moon landing. As I squatted there it all just came right out. The pleasure was immense and powerful. I looked down to see where my mess had landed only to witness a poor old chap pick up his Coke can where my juice had landed. I felt awful. My small stomach could barely hold it. Someone drinking my poop. Oh god. I projected my vomit halfway across that small street and onto a poor old innocent bystander. She stood up and started gagging as the man below me soon realized that there was poop in his drink. The symphony of destructive disgustingness had begun, and I decided to get the frick out of there. It's a hard life being a pigeon. One time my second child was complaining about not feeling well while we were watching some kids shows. He was an early talker, so he was still primarily drinking milk and eating baby food for sustenance. He was maybe about a year old. He started getting more agitated than just complaining, so I knew he was about to hurl. I picked him up under his arms and carried him at arm's length to the stairs to go to his bathroom. Right at the bottom of the stairs he freaking projectile puked right in my mouth while I was telling him it would be okay. I still remember being in the middle of the okay when I got a mouthful of baby vomit. All white and creamy. Jesus, that was horrible. And for anyone that says spit up isn't vomit, that's not as gross as it could be. This was vomit. He had a stomach bug. It stank. I'm not even going to talk about the taste. The fact that I didn't get sick is a testament to the amazing powers of the human immune system. I have 2 stories for you. First, we were at a major amusement park in Ohio and we decided to grab some cheese sticks to snack on. After we proceeded to finish them off we reached the bottom of the plate. Both thingy. I picked up one and began to eat it, and while I was chewing the bite I looked into the boat and there was a mosquito the size of a quarter dead and with blood all over the bottom of the boat. Needless to say I finished my cheese stick. Second, at my daughter's first Thanksgiving. During the time while everyone was eating, a cousin walked up and told me that my daughter was stinky. She was playing on her belly with some baby toys and I reached under her to pick her up. Suddenly my hand is covered in the most liquid form of diarrhea I've ever seen, and I've changed some nasty diapers. She was soaked from neck to toe in liquid crap. That started a weeks-long event of what is quicker, her bowels or our ability to change her. Inevitably we discovered that she is lactose intolerant. Probably one of the grossest things I've had to encounter was draining the brown recluse bite on my stomach. I was bitten in my sleep on my stomach by a brown recluse in early 2007. At first, it just looked like a tiny scab, so I just kind of ignored it and put some Neosporin and a band-aid on it. The next day, it started getting really red and the affected area was kind of hard. I went to a doctor to have it seen about and the diagnosis was a brown recluse bite. Since it was caught early enough, they didn't have to lance it, so they gave me medicine to induce the swelling and told me to drain it myself. Fast forward to the night that it was ready to drain. I was working that night and noticed a spot of blood on my shirt, so I went to the bathroom and noticed that the bite was leaking blood and pus. When I got home from work, I immediately got in the shower and just started pushing on my stomach. It didn't just ooze out blood and pus, it exploded out. The amount of blood and pus that initially came out and hit the floor of my shower looked like a scene out of a horror movie, and it was crazy. After that, I had to manually remove dead tissue from the inside of my stomach with tweezers and clean the affected area out with a Q-tip. This isn't necessarily disgusting, but as for pure freak out factor, this had to be my worst. I went on a 3-day yoga retreat at this facility out in the middle of nowhere. They were still in construction building it, but they had dorm-style rooms for everyone, gender separated. Showers with curtains but no hot water yet. Freezing showers are not fun, etc. On the evening of the first day, a couple people and I decided to wander around in the woods for a bit. Gorgeous area. When we get back, I notice that I'm super itchy around my socks. I look closer and realize I have a billion small reddish brown dots saturating my socks and the skin underneath. Ticks. For 2 days, there was nothing I could do. I scrubbed the heck out of my ankles in the shower, but there were a bunch that wouldn't come off. No one had any rubbing alcohol. I tried spraying them with bug repellent. No dice. At some point I also noticed they were in my belly button. I had to go on autopilot to keep myself from having a complete nervous breakdown for those 2 days until I got back to civilization and soak in rubbing alcohol. I grew up working on a dairy farm in Pennsylvania. We had 300 head of Holstein cows and did all of our own breeding birthing. Often, cows would have trouble delivering their young and needed some help from the farm workers. Pulling a calf involved finding the calf's front hooves as they were coming out of the mom's ladder cow parts, attaching a special set of chains, and leaning into it to help get the little one out of there. But once a sick pregnant cow was diagnosed as having a stillbirth, that is, the calf inside was dead. When it came time to pull the stillborn calf out, we attached the chains as usual and began to pull the dead baby out. The front legs, head, and torso of the dead calf all came out fine, and then, all of a sudden, the dead calf's body tears in freaking half. We fell backward onto the ground with a sort of rotten, dead upper half of a calf laying oozing at our legs, intestines and all. We then had to pull the butt end out by hand, and oh god, the smell still makes me sick to think about. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.